Hey, Strategy Simplified. Are you on the fence about applying for a management consulting role? If you are, we've got a great opportunity for you. It's called Strategy Sprint. Strategy Sprint is a way for you to test drive the consulting experience, to dip your toes into the waters of what being a strategy consultant is all about before you invest 1 month, 4 months, 6 months of prep into the process, only to maybe discover that it's not really up your alley. It's not your jam. It's not what you want to do for the next 2, 4, or more years. Strategy Sprint is coming up November 2024, November 2 to 8. It's a 1-week virtual consulting project. And in today's episode, you're going to learn all about Sprint. You're going to hear from a couple of previous sprinters about their experience, and you're going to learn about how to design your own consulting project. If Strategy Sprint is not for you, but you'd still like to get that consulting experience and test drive this wonderful opportunity for you. So links in the show notes to learn more about Sprint, to join today. There's just a couple of seats left. We'd love to have you. Reach out to our team at managementconsultant.com if you have any questions. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. Really quick, if you're not already familiar with Strategy Sprint, as I mentioned before, it's a 1-week virtual consulting project, so you can join from anywhere across the globe. We always have folks from different continents joining in, so it's a lot of fun, very diverse and global experience. But to start off, we're going to train you on the key skills that you'll need to succeed, not only in Strategy Sprint, but in management consulting more generally. So you're going to have about a 10-hour time commitment, and you're going to go through some self-paced virtual skills training on running Excel analysis, PowerPoint storyboarding, executive communication to C-suite stakeholders, and more. And we'll give you some homework to put those skills into action. And then for the actual project, we're going to kick you off on November 2nd. That's a Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, so you can put that in your calendar. You're going to meet your MBB team leader, so someone from McKinsey, Bain, or BCG, who is a fantastic consultant from our team. It's going to be leading the project, providing coaching and mentorship to you and to your team. And you're going to own your own work stream on Strategy Sprint. So you're going to be put in charge of a specific part of this project for a real world client that we source for you to work on. So it's a growth oriented project, right? You're looking to help a business grow their top line revenue. It's a lot of fun, but you're going to get your hands really dirty running some research and analysis and building PowerPoint slides, etc., with support from your MBB team leader and our team. And so it's a lot of fun. And then at the end of the week, you will present your recommendations, aka here is how we recommend answering this question, this growth question that the client has. So you present to the client C-suite on the Friday, which is November 8th. And then post-project will help you integrate this into your resume. It looks great on your resume, and we'd love to help you add that on at no extra charge. Well, we've got Mark Rooney with us today. I'm going to stop screen sharing, but Mark, thank you for joining us today. Can you just quickly tell us a little bit about when you joined Strategy Sprint, right? You joined it some years back, and then tell us a little bit about your background. And I've got a couple more questions for you, but excited to hear about your experience with Strategy Sprint and hopefully help answer some of the questions that folks have on the call.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. So a little bit about me is that I was working for a global manufacturing company for about 12 years. Went back to school for my MBA during COVID, actually. And then as the MBA was wrapping up, I was looking to pivot into consulting and enlisted in the strategy sprint, which was very helpful for me. Um, and so, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's great. Can you just quickly summarize what the project was for you? Kind of who was the client and what was your part in that project?
Sure. So our client was a relatively small wine producer based out of California. Um, they were looking to grow, and my specific work stream within that project was pricing related.
Pricing
Did you
work
say to
stream.
lower prices or raise prices, Mark?
I said raise them.
Yeah, baby. That's how we do it around here. Yep,
That's
that's
it.
right.
It's always something the client loves to hear.
They're
Exactly.
terrified though, aren't they? Isn't it funny, Mark, when you like watch the client, you're a little nervous about telling them what to do because that's not natural for a lot of people. They haven't raised them because they thought they had some assumptions you have to get them over.
Right. The price
Amazing.
elasticity, I think, really got them there.
All right. Well, Mark, we're gonna come back to you in just a sec. We've also got Panache with us. Panache, thanks for joining and making time for this today. Same question for you. Quick background, and who was the client that you served on Strategy Sprint?
Yeah, so I guess thanks, Shepard. So yeah, quick background is I'm from Zimbabwe. And then I grew up in South Africa where I did my undergraduate degree, and then very recently I came over to Canada, where I'm now doing completing my MBA. And the strategy sprint essentially, having identified that I wanted to go into consulting was a great way to kind of just dip my toes in the water and see what was going on. And then I was actually in the same group and project as Mark over here. So it was the wine farm that we were designing a post-acquisition growth strategy for.
Okay, amazing. Were you on the same team?
Yes, yeah, same team.
Love it.
You didn't do
Okay.
pricing though. What did you do?
Yeah.
I was doing distribution. Yeah, so I was
Mm.
optimizing to choose those channels.
Do you remember what your key takeaway was?
In terms of distribution, it was
Mm.
don't underestimate DTC, direct to consumer. And we started like referencing kind of using like influencers and yeah, that type of marketing to get direct to the consumer and spread across the country.
Love it. Mark, question for you. Obviously, you got to get some mentorship from an MBB consultant. What was that like learning, sitting under an MBB consultant? What was like a key takeaway or learning from that experience?
Yeah, so I think the biggest takeaway, Ray was his name. Well, I would say there's many good things to say about him. The first thing that comes to mind is how helpful he was throughout the process. Um, a mid-career person looking to move into consulting, he was able to walk me through the process a little bit in more detail compared to what you could read online or in books. So I would say that's the biggest thing. And then specifically to Ray, he was incredibly helpful even after strategy sprint, just to connect with and talk through really kind of where I wanted my career to go. And so having a different perspective was very nice.
I love it. There's so much to gain just from brushing shoulders with folks who have done this type of work. Panache, same question for you.
Yeah, I think essentially firstly double tapping on what Mark said, I think having that one-on-one contact is extremely helpful too, and being able to kind of put away into the side rooms and get that feedback on especially kind of the strengths and weaknesses that the coach had identified and what I could lead into and improve on was extremely helpful, not only for the project but also going forward into whether it's like the MBA class projects or my future consulting. And then secondly, I think also less so the specific coach, but I found it very, very kind of eye-opening in the final presentation itself, kind of seeing how different MBB coaches and alumni present and the different methods and different ways of delivery, while there was still some sort of commonality and kind of like data visualization and the way they organize their work. But I really kind of familiarized myself with the fact that there are multiple approaches to getting to the end goal, and yeah, that was extremely eye opening for me.
It's not one size fits all, huh?
Indeed, no cookie cutter.
Can I add
Panache,
a comment on that one,
go
Jay?
for it.
Yeah, one of the things that was has been really interesting, just so everybody knows, each strategy sprint has one project. So one of the things that we're going to recommend when we're talking about building your own consulting project in a few minutes is obviously that you're going to go off and source your own project. One of the things that we do is that we source a project, we identify a client, and we frame the project. And so we actually give everybody really similar guidance on work streams. And yet, like Panashi was just saying, you end up with this wildly different set of insights and style, even with people that have incredibly similar training. And so when we're in the final presentation, everybody watches everybody else's. So you see where you overlapped and you also see where you differentiated. And it's quite fascinating to watch that experience when everybody literally starts with the same client, the same business problem. You all have access to the same data, but your storytelling, your approach, and then what you pick to emphasize inside the presentation is super different. So just everybody kind of can imagine what's happening in that final presentation. You're actually seeing more than one, more than yours. You're actually seeing others as well. And that's been a really important part of the learning experience for a lot of folks.
Exactly. And I think that's why we've had many people actually join multiple strategy sprint projects, right? Like 3 or 4 projects where they get to have a different coach and solve a different problem each time, just because folks love solving problems. Panache, biggest takeaway from the project for yourself? You mentioned you're kind of dipping your toes in the waters of consulting. Did this convince you that it was the right path for you?
Yeah, 100%. I think biggest takeaway, David, was kind of you mentioned in the beginning, but kind of kind of letting you test drive the experience, and also kind of double tapping people on that, having ownership over the work streams, and kind of really empathizing with the problem and seeing how best you yourself would solve it, and then being able to kind of put like a mark to market, if you will, and mark that against both your other teammates, who are also coming from very different professional backgrounds, as well as from the MVP coach themselves. I think that was my biggest takeaway, essentially, dipping my toes in the water and then being able to immerse myself in the pressure and the challenge, and then coming through that and getting the feedback and etc. from that.
We'll be right back after this quick break.
Welcome. My name is Michelle Meyer-Ship, and I'm the CEO of Dress for Success Worldwide. Dress for Success has been the leading nonprofit employment resource for women for 26 years. I'm also excited to say that I'm your host for our podcast, More Than the Dress, to discuss the challenges and triumphs that women face today. Through these conversations, we really hope that we can inspire you to succeed in your work and everyday life. Join me on this very inspiring journey. You can listen to More Than the Dress wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Michelle Meyer-Ship, and I'll see you soon. Take good care.
Love it. Panache, why was joining like a project like Strategy Sprint, where it's kind of all set up for you, what was that helpful versus, say, if you had gone off and kind of DIY'd it yourself?
Yeah, I think and this probably also speaks to why I initially made contact with my consultant. But I think Mark kind of referenced it in the beginning too, that there's a lot of information online, and you can essentially Google until time ends. But I think having all of that kind of in a pre-made mix, if you will, and essentially setting up for success, I think was really really useful. And again, kind of going deeper in that, I think also the time saved, in starting off well and knowing that you're in good hands and that things are progressing towards something productive.
Mm-hmm.
I think was extremely helpful and extremely useful relative to just figuring it out on myself with Google and YouTube, which are great resources, but not as good.
You didn't want to go down 8,000 rabbit trails.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Panache, one final question for you. I know you have a hard stop in about 3 minutes. And then Mark got some more questions for you. Panache, how has having done Strategy Sprint impacted you since that? Is there any new skills that you picked up from that? Or was it helpful in your resume or something else?
Yeah, so I think all of the above to start with, but kind of going down to that, like I think we in terms of skills that I took away, I think that the training program initially at the beginning, again going through the Excel training and the PowerPoint training again was a great kind of lift off and starting point, getting those frameworks again, saving time and getting a great starting point to springboard off of, and then having that kind of framework for storytelling through a PowerPoint, which I think is very different from other types of PowerPoint creations. I thought that was a really that was a technical skill that I really developed throughout the course. And then I think with that, when you say how I felt since doing that, I think the confidence in having done it and having done it in a mentored environment was extremely useful in building my confidence in terms of knowing the value that I bring to the table and where to lean into and where to limit kind of the weaknesses and where to lean into the strengths. And I think all of that came together in just making me better prepared for the consulting recruitment process itself. And then lastly, as you mentioned, Japeth, I think having numbers and results to put on your resume, and knowing how to speak to them, having immerse yourself in the consulting process, because then you understand what's important and again which areas to highlight and which areas to maybe highlight a bit less, and try to be concise. So all of that coming together was extremely useful in the strategy sprint experience.
Amazing. That's super powerful. I appreciate you sharing that.
Thanks,
Well,
Jacob.
Panache, thank you so much. I know you got to go, but really appreciate your input here.
Yes, thanks for having me.
I love it. Confidence. You heard it here, folks. All right. Mark, curious, what was a high from the strategy sprint week and what was one low? I know it's not all butterflies and rainbows.
Yeah, so I'd say the high was seeing it all come together at the end of the week when we had the final presentation put together and being able to deliver it, to the client. That really made me feel good. And I know in addition to our team, we all worked hard throughout that week to make sure we had everything prepared and ready to go. So I'd say that was a high. The low for me at that time was really time management, and being able to kind of fit that in addition to working, full time. But it sounds like that's being addressed, with the part time. So yeah, that was the low for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. I know it is a commitment for sure, especially when you're working full time. But I'm excited about the kind of the flex model that we have where folks can opt into the part time or the full time option. Although it's still work. It's still a good workload. Um, so
It's
keep this
fun work.
spicy.
It's
It's
fun
fun.
work.
It's meaningful. It's fun.
Mark, I think I don't know if you found this true, but I think like when people say work smart, not hard, you actually just have to work hard first in order to figure out how to work smart. I think that's kind of what the strategy sprint week is a little bit about, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, and that's a great point. I mean, one of the bigger takeaways that I had was really prioritizing where to look, for information, how to, put the story together.
That's awesome. Mark, by the way, just to tie back with your pricing piece, the winery has raised prices every quarter. They raise the price of three of their bottles. So they're on a schedule to have all the prices increased by like 15 to 20% by the end of 2025. So how about that?
Oh, that's awesome. Good to
Yeah.
hear.
Making a real difference. All right, Mark, one or two final questions for you. Throughout the week, did you have any kind of light bulb moments that happened, right, where something just maybe clicked, or maybe it even happened after the project where you're at work and you realize, oh, hey, this was helpful.
Yeah, so the biggest light bulb moment that I had throughout the week was really having the ability to apply the same process and framework to other instances or problems, within the industry, um, especially when we were talking about like top line growth. And so it allowed me to look at kind of some of the scenarios that I was experiencing and still am experiencing, through a different lens, and then being able to kind of break that down, whether it be pricing or channels, um, to really accomplish where I'm trying to take my group.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, really appreciate your perspective here. Any final words of advice or wisdom to someone who is considering strategy sprint?
Yeah, so I'd say jump in, and do the program. That's based on my experience. Whether I'd say either pursuing a consulting role or something even within industry, I think there's a lot of applicability to both. And I could tell you, even in the year since I've completed the program, I've definitely seen benefits, uh, in my own work.
Okay. So glad to hear it. Well, really appreciate your perspective here today, Mark, and thanks for taking some time. Hope folks, hope you gained some insights from Mark and Panache there.
Thanks, y'all.
Amazing.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Mark.
Good to see you, Mark.
Are you preparing for a case interview and need some last-minute help? Maybe you have a final round interview coming up in just a few days, or a big round of interviews this week. Whatever it is, at this stage of the game, there's only one thing that you can do to improve your chances of landing an offer, and that's expert out loud practice. Lucky for you, we have solutions. We have an amazing team of 25 McKinsey, Bain, and BCG coaches who are the world's foremost experts on acing the case interview, and they have availability to get you interview ready soon. You can purchase just 1 hour of coaching, you can purchase a 4-hour package, or go whole hog with our 8-hour black belt program, which not only includes the coaching, but a lot of amazing digital resources and drills and so much more. You can schedule your one-on-one Zoom session for as soon as 24 hours after purchase. So jump in today at the links in this episode's show notes. Oh, and by the way, if you're at a management consulted partner university, see your MC account for discounts on all of our coaching packages. All right, let's get back into the show.
Jenny Ray, you ready to talk about some consulting projects here?
Yeah, we think about this all the time. Like, the reason that we created Strategy Sprint is that we think that doing consulting projects is worth it. It's worth it for your own professional development. We actually help corporates do internal consulting projects so that they can train their team on analytics and presentations. It gamifies an experience, so it's a really powerful corporate training tool that we utilize. We think if you're in undergrad or in your MBA, it's a great way to integrate what you're learning in the classroom. How does accounting work? How do you actually read a 10K to get the information? Where could somebody think about their operating metrics? What kind of marketing should they do? It's a way to really make real world the things that you're learning in theory in the classroom, or that you're learning by looking back. That you're learning at looking what a company did. Now you're asking a company to do it forward. So it's an incredible applied technique. And then, of course, if you're interested in a career in consulting, like Panache really recommended, it is a phenomenal way to add a color to your story and a compelling reason. When somebody says, why do you want to do consulting? You can say, I didn't know I wanted to do it, but I got in there, I did a project, and I had a really remarkable experience. I loved it. I loved this about it. It was hard. I loved working in teams. I loved the analytics. Like, you have proof points for all of the things that would otherwise be very watery in your resume. So it's a really big opportunity to drive story and to drive your own conviction about the role that you may or may not want to take. The fourth reason, which honestly just doesn't happen a lot, but it can be a good reason, is if this is a terrible career for you, spend 1 week figuring it out, not a lifetime diving into it, right? Like, I am so glad that in my career, I spent time in medical centers when I wasn't paid and I wasn't graded to do what was in the medical center. What I discovered is I don't want to be a doctor. That was some of the most valuable investment of time and money that I made in my future career, was deciding that I didn't want to do something. So those are a couple of the key things that you think about. Let's talk a little bit about what you want to think about when you're designing your project. So, consulting firms evaluate your experience in three different core areas. Number one is, did you work for a brand name? For consulting, you usually don't get the opportunity to do this unless you're a student, you have a connection, you have a family member, or you work for free. You do a free consulting project for a brand name organization. So, it's not always the way to check that, but it's definitely a way depending on pathways that you have. But number two is always checked with a consulting project. Did you work in a business function? This is a fundamental opportunity for you to shape the business of an organization. Jay, have we done the project reveal? Can we do the project reveal for this next strategy sprint?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
I don't have a slide, but
yeah, we're working for a yoga retreat and like on-site yoga program provider that does yoga retreats both in California and in other places around the world. And it's going to, she like does different programs in different locations. And it's going to be a really, really interesting question because there are certainly different models for how you do this, but really thinking about like, what are the points of success? How does she grow her revenue? She's out there hustling and she doesn't have time in her everyday life to think about the business of her business. She thinks about how to do yoga as a business. That's different than the business of her business. And so you have the opportunity to really sit with her, to pull her out of her core things, to do a ton of work on her behalf, and then to advise her in a way that will shape her business for literally years to come. You just heard about the winery or the work that they did on Strategy Sprint through 2026. One of those work streams will make a difference with what I talked about. Number three, it's an opportunity to actually do the work. Did you display the skills that firms hire for? We're not in a case interview asking you, could you hypothetically do analytics? We're asking you, please do analytics. And saying inside your fit interview, hey, I did analytics and this is what I did. And then having the confidence to translate that, not just into a case interview, but on the job, phenomenal opportunity. So did you display the skills that firms hire for? Analytical skills, communication skills, 100% of your team members present. If you're terrified of presenting, come on over. It's awesome. This is a low stakes. The clients are thrilled to have this opportunity with you. It's a very, very supportive environment, but it is an opportunity for you to really break through on areas that are challenges for you. Or if you're extremely analytical and you're not good at driving insights or action, right? You're great at finding data, but you don't know what it's supposed to lead to. There are just lots of opportunities to bridge those skills inside this experience. The final thing that firms look at, and this is not on its own worthwhile, right? If it's not in a business function, if it's not skill building, and if it's not brand name, then if it's just unique, they don't look for that. But they look for an element of uniqueness. I was walking on Notre Dame's campus. I'm sitting at Notre Dame today. I was walking on Notre Dame's campus yesterday, and I just was talking with one of our fellow instructors, and he said, I feel like McKinsey really specializes in these like analytical geniuses that have some kind of secret sauce. And we were like, well, what's your secret sauce? He said, like, I'm a guy who is fluent in Arabic and Afrikaans, which is a really unusual combination, and I'm a professional flutist. Like that's unusual, right? And so uniqueness, but like, of course, he's also a ninja at analytics. He had great business experience. Like he already checked the boxes on the other things. So he wasn't saying that people are just extraordinarily different. He was saying that their core capabilities are there and they're also different. And I think that's a really important insight. Next slide, Jay.
Love it. I think it's easy to underestimate how intense the consulting recruiting process is and kind of how long it takes. And Jenny, you can speak to that from your own experience, but right, it's not just something you take lightly. And so if you're on the fence, right, doing a consulting project is like a great way to right, ensure that this is actually something that you want to do.
That's right. So one thing, first of all, that I just want everybody to know is that we created Strategy Sprint not because you can't do this. You absolutely can. In fact, our whole business exists on this premise. You can do case interviews without us. Of course you can. We're happy to help. We are here to help you build a consulting project because we think consulting projects are worth it. We think case interviews are worth it. We think analytics are worth it. We think that communication is worth it. We are an opportunity to help you, but you do not have to do our pathway. And so we'll tell you the main decision point is, do you want to do the hard work or do you want us to do the hard work? right? Because if you're good with doing the hard work, then you're just like I was when I was an undergrad. I was happy to do it, and this is what you need. Number one, you need a client. Right. And a client needs to have a business problem. They don't actually have to be a business. It could be a nonprofit. It could be a university department that's trying to operate differently. It could be like we're going to do a case study for an athletics department in a case competition format on campus in about 4 weeks. And in that case competition, it's for an athletics department. That's not a business per se, but it is an operating division of an organization. And so there are lots of clients that you can work for. How do you find a client if you don't know what the client is? Well, number one, you ask friends and family. You probably know someone who runs a business. We've worked for law firms. We've worked for medical centers. They don't have to be in the business of business. They don't have to be a consulting business. They can be any kind of business. They can sell something. They can deliver something. It can be absolutely anything. And so the ideal client is one of these things, right? A warm connection, a family friend, a former employer. Those are phenomenal opportunities. And I'm talking like you worked at an Outback Steakhouse as a server. You can go work for that Outback Steakhouse and do a consulting project for them on the business side. It doesn't have to be in your same function. It's just people that you have a relationship with who know you're not weird, right? That's where the warm connection is helpful. The second opportunity is in an industry where data is publicly accessible. So if you are working in an industry, this is one of the reasons that we pick growth projects, because internal projects, you need their data. Growth projects, you don't. You actually can like look on a website and be like, good, this is what you sell. You can ask a couple of clarifying questions, but basically one of our points of success, the reason we get these great projects and the clients love them, is that we ask very little of them. Now, in business, I think I have an opposite philosophy. When you are selling something to somebody, you should ask a lot of them, I think, because it creates relationship and change and opportunity, and it's a different mechanism. Here, our goal is minimum impact on the client. We want them to say yes, we want to have a great experience, and we want to think about how we're going to take the initiative, and we're not going to make them do more work than we are. And number three is a client that is actually going to take your recommendations, because the best story is the one where you say, actually, my client took the pricing recommendations and implemented them over 2 years. That's phenomenal, right? Actually, my client took our recommendation and became a B2C company that delivered their highest margin business, and we gave them the specific roadmap to do that. I mean, unbelievable. This is exciting. This is an amazing opportunity. So those are the ideal clients. If you don't have a family, friend, or former employer, by the way, you all do, but if you, for any reason, get frozen and don't think of one of the places for my students that are on the call that I always recommend is looking at your TTO. A TTO is a technology transfer office. There's one on every campus at every university, and their design is to take stuff that is developed at the university, often technology, hence the name, but not always. Sometimes it is pharmaceutical products or medical devices or coaching platforms. It's all kinds of different things. And their job is to commercialize it on behalf of the university. So the university holds a patent. Your job is to commercialize the product. They need business support. They're great opportunities for you to go through those projects. There are other ways, but I think that's probably enough on that one. Jay, can you go back to the last slide? Yep. So step number 2 is a scope. And our core issue here is trying to figure out what are the specific problems that are being solved. And we always set up specific types of problems for a specific reason, which I'll share with you. I want to say you can DIY, like you can do whatever kind of scope you want. You can ask them very open-ended, what is the problem that's being solved? We find that open-ended questions get either poor answers or blank stares. And so we generally find that better questions are more tactical. So here are some keys to the ideal scope of a problem. Number 1, the problem should have opportunity to be solved using public data on markets or competitors. So ideally, a revenue or an external project is really, really good. It should be limited in scope. So you need to identify the timeline that you're willing to work with and what your deliverable is on the first day. Ideally, before you even meet with them, I will deliver you a growth plan for how you can grow revenue in the next 2 years. That's my project I'm proposing. Will you say yes or no? Not, hey, let's meet. Let me find out about your business. I'll get back to you with a proposal and an idea. Like come to them with, this is what we do. This is how we do it. This is why we have an amazing pipeline of companies that we're able to work with, because we, again, make it easy, clear on them, and we run the show. And that's a part of the consulting process. Like you tell them what they need. They don't know what they need. And so you might find other stuff when you're in there. You might get a whole internship out of this, heck. But start with a consulting project and see where you can go from there. Let's go back to the original OG slide again. Yeah, there we go. So the second one, the third one is a timeline, right? You tell them when it's going to start, when it's going to finish, and how much you're going to work. You do not leave that up to them. You're not applying for a job. You're applying for them to let you consult you on their business. And so the timeline will usually be somewhere between 1 week. We do ours in 1 week because we can. And because our clients are ready for it and our coaches are on board and all of the staff members are like, okay, we're either taking off the week or we're just mentally getting ready for this week. We find that to be really attractive when there is a team because it's challenging to sync up multiple different schedules over multiple different weeks and months. When it's just you, it can be a week, it can be 2 weeks, it can be a month, it can be a semester. I probably would not suggest doing a consulting project longer than a semester. But the shorter that it is, the higher impact you can bring in the least amount of time, but you need to obviously pace it with other things that you're doing. The timeline needs to be clearly defined. You need to set in your first meeting the date of your final presentation, no questions asked. You don't say, we'll set it later. You set what that date is, from the beginning, exactly how long everything is going to be. A project without a timeline isn't a project, it's a job. Okay. It's you signing up to do whatever they want you to do. I don't ever mind that. If people are like, we would love to help you, Jenny Ray, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to say no. But we like to set up timelines with projects because we find that they're easier for our team to manage externally and they're easier for you overall. Our preference, as Japheth has on the slide here, is that we like under 4-week projects. So ideally, it's a get in, do the project, and get out within that 4-week period. And if you're not sure, just pick one. But I'd go a little bit longer if it's your first time doing it because there can be challenges as well. So we've got a client, right? You need an entity to go for, a scope, the problem that's being solved, a timeline. That's the next key. And then finally, you need a deliverable. What are you doing? Like, what are we doing here? Are you just going to go look at some stuff, or what is the deliverable? So at ours in Strategy Sprint, we set ours 18-minute presentation. Every single person on the team needs to present for at least one slide. We set the scope of the work streams. We have 6 work streams. So we break it up and we have expectations right from the very beginning. This is the final presentation. You're going to get the presentation. It's going to be in PowerPoint. If there's an Excel that goes along with it, we will also give you the Excel. But number one, it has to be super clear. So if you are presenting a marketing plan to them, tell them if you are actually building something for them, a website, collateral, messaging, if you're building a survey for them, go get it, but tell them exactly what it is. Ambiguity sucks. And it couldn't be more true. Ambiguity has ruined more consulting projects than anything else on the planet because you think you're doing one thing, the client thinks you're doing another thing. You have the chance to over deliver, but more than likely you just miss expectations. So super clear is really helpful. Number 2, limited in scope. Don't promise that you're going to do a 5-year revenue break if you're going to get them to 1. Just limit it. It's fine. You're doing it for free, usually, right? You're doing this for free. And so limiting your scope to, I will look at the next year of growth for you. I will look at one portion of your business. Usually organizations get excited when they feel like they have an opportunity to solve a problem and they start to think of other problems to give you. Tell them no. Tell them, I'm going to do this project for you. We'll see where it comes out. And then at the end, you can either find somebody else to do another set of projects, or you can have me do a second one for you, right? But don't start by expanding the role and expanding the timeline. Don't do that. It's really, really important. There's one easy way inside a consulting firm to make people mad at you, and that's to tell them that the work that you promised them to do just doubled. Number 3 is we like presentations, right? Telling them that it's going to come in written format, I can guarantee it's not going to happen. Coming in a presentation format is a way for them to digest it. Now, they're likely going to take some things just from the delivery. That's going to be the most compelling part, but presentations are a very easy and clear way. And we think that our presentation building process actually, we don't think it, we know our presentation building process is world-class. It's actually above and beyond what we did when we were at Bain and McKinsey, because now we have the opportunity to have thought across 60, 70 corporate organizations like eBay and CVS, how to do what we did at Bain and McKinsey for anyone. And so this world-class experience of presentations is something that you can begin to learn by struggling through the process of how do you tell a story, how do you build a presentation, how do you build great slides. Great. The final thing, which you can build, is a team. So a lot of people come out of a strategy sprint, not just with stories about the client and about their work stream, but also stories about who you worked with. One of the big questions in consulting is like, tell me about a time that you worked on a team when it wasn't fun or somebody faced a challenge or you had a conflict on the team. Guess what? Even though we're really dang good at running strategy sprint, there's always conflicts on teams. That's just human nature. If you want to build this on your own, then you can definitely build a team. But I wouldn't recommend it. I'll just be totally honest. Part of what you get when you come into strategy sprint is the ability to be guided through the process. When you have to guide yourself through the process and deliver the work and manage a team, it just creates an opportunity for disaster. So my recommendation is don't do this. But if you want to, there's a great reason for it, which is that you show that you work incredibly well in teams. And it does help you build some of those hero stories, some of the opportunities for you to rise up, to stand up, to speak up inside your team, to make the team better. It's really exciting the way that that works together. So again, you could have a team. You absolutely don't need one. And sometimes it can be better not to have one.
Love it. Thanks so much, Jenny. I think that's really helpful framework for folks. And yeah, go for it. Run like the wind.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. We, by the way, Orozco in the message said in the pro bono consulting group I work with, we give a final presentation and then email the client a written document afterwards. So if any of you are in consulting groups on campus, you'll often find this similar process. Usually you have a team leader, ideally somebody who's done the analytical work, been on the staff of the team before. That person is kind of like our partner function inside this role. Sometimes it's the little bit of the blind leading the blind, but still like they may have done it before, so it's at least better than it would have been otherwise. But a lot of those pro bono consulting groups are set up around these project areas. The one difference is that most pro bono consulting groups you only see one perspective on every client. One of the things I do really like about Strategy Sprint is that you get more than one perspective. So when you see the way another team approaches it, you can not just think about what you learned, but also compare it to what somebody else did, which is a really helpful proof point as well. So yeah, let's talk about November. Y'all, we would love for you to come. I mean, if you don't come, somebody's coming, but we'd like for you to be there. So we would really be excited to have you at this strategy sprint that we're doing in November. So yeah, let's talk about some of the specifics on this one. So like we've already talked about a little bit of this, but just to bring it down to the real world, if you don't design your own consulting project or you want to work with us and you also do your own consulting project, we'd love to have you. Here's who it's for. It's for students and experienced professionals. People who want to learn how to become trusted advisors, whether it's through the application to a new job or in your current role. Consulting recruiting is competitive, so it does create an opportunity for you to really tell powerful stories. It's an incredibly powerful experience. And then it is 1 week. So if we haven't been clear on that, we start on a Saturday with a kickoff meeting and you present the following Friday. You do have some optional pre-work. People that do it usually have a better experience, but it's not mandatory. And then you again have the option to work part-time or full-time. Yeah, next slide, Jay. Perfect. So phase one is the pre-work that you have the option to do. Some of you may be thinking like, I'll sign up later. Sign up now because the best experience that you're going to have is the opportunity to do this pre-work in advance. If you like try to crush it the night before, we need y'all to be fresh and well rested. It's a busy, busy week. So we'd rather have you give yourself a little bit more time. They're exclusive to Strategy Sprint. These are not anywhere else on our platform. They're focused on core consulting skills. It is a boot camp for Strategy Sprint for a 1 week consulting project. Its focus is on top-down communication, how to do Excel for Strategy Sprint, how to build storyboards in a short timeline, and more. And we also have homework in there that we find a lot of people really resonate with that simulates consulting-like assignments. So that's kind of the pre-work. Jay, you want to walk through this one?
For sure. Yeah, as we already mentioned before, your kind of final deliverable is that presentation the Friday following the kickoff. And again, we're giving you the option to opt into a part-time or a full-time workload here, depending on what works best for you. So you heard from Mark earlier, he was a full-time working pro, but he still went and added a full-time workload onto Strategy Sprint. It was a lot. It is a lot if you try to go that route, but you certainly can. And I'll just say that the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. Whichever route that you end up opting into, just know that kind of Wednesday and Thursday are going to be the busiest days of the week as you're kind of getting closer to that final presentation. It's all coming together. You're getting feedback from the partner review meeting, and it's kind of all hands on deck. So as you're thinking about your schedule, just keep that in mind. But one of the most exciting parts of the project is the kickoff meeting. That's on the Saturday, November 2nd here. You're going to meet your MBB team leader. You're going to meet your teammates, which is a lot of fun. And you're going to meet the client and just get an intro to the project. And then you will be put into breakout rooms to kind of align on work streams and get started on the project. And then right during the week, you're crushing the analysis. You're getting in that research. You're building slides with your team. You're connecting on Slack. You're meeting twice as a team with your project leader, and then twice one-on-one with your project leader between Monday and Thursday. So you get feedback right on your work stream, on your slides, on your analysis, and just any questions or roadblocks that you're running into, get those answered. And on the Thursday, you're doing a dry run of the presentation with our strategy sprint partner, just to write. She's going to tell you like, hey, that was clear or that was not. Hey, fix this. All right, this is great. And then you're going to be working Thursday afternoon and evening to integrate that feedback and get ready for final presentations on Friday. And then Friday, of course, presentations and party time. Jenny Ray highlighted the client earlier, so I won't go into that. But really quickly, here's who you'll have one of these two project leaders, two of our amazing coaches here, Divya and Yusuf from Divya, former McKinsey engagement manager, BCG, a couple of years at BCG. So they have amazing wisdom and experience, and they're both top-rated sprint coaches. And so whoever's team you get added to, it's going to be an amazing experience for you. So really stoked to have these two coaches with us for this project. Amazing. We'll help you add this to your resume. So here you can see a couple of examples of how strategy sprint can be added to a resume, and we'll help you kind of tweak these bullets, right, to be clear, to be optimal. Our resume editors will help you do this at no extra charge. So, right, it's going to be an amazing add to your resume, whether to fill in a gap or, right, just have some consulting experience on there. And then you can also talk about this experience in interviews. So it's really phenomenal.
Just lingering on that for 1 second. If y'all do your own consulting projects, make sure you talk about what the company does and what the project was. Like a lot of times you're like, I did this analysis and nobody cares because they don't understand the context of it. So we always really specify in these, you see these first two lines, what the context was of the company and the project overall, and then what you did, and then kind of what the results were. So it gives some of the mechanics of the project, but it also gives the context. I think that's a really important point that a lot of people miss.
That's great, Jenny Ray. Jenny Ray, if question we get all the time is, when is the best time to do strategy sprint for me? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I don't think there's a time that's too early. Like this is definitely one of those things where you can't do it too early. It's an experience you can talk about. I mean, I think both Panache and
Mark,
both Panache and Mark did their project in November of last year. So it's been almost a year. The project information is still fresh. They still have the learnings. Also, I think a lot of people do want to leave time to do more than one. It's a really affordable program. It's only $1,200 to do strategy sprint. So if you're a student, you have a student discount for it. Like we are really great about making this remarkable experience really accessible for a lot of people. It's not free, it can't be free. You can do a free one if you want, but this version of it can't be free. But we absolutely do really work to make that phenomenal. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for you here to put that in there. So yeah, I think that can be helpful as well.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, if you want to ask your employer to fund the experience, some employers are willing to fund it as a professional development expense. You can do that. We've got a request for funding template that we'll happily share with you. So just comment RFT here and we'll get that to you.
Thank you for tuning in. Again, links in the show notes to learn more about Strategy Sprint and to join today. Again, there's just a couple of spots left, and we'd love to have you. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a rating and review. It does help the show reach more listeners and expand our platform. Thank you in advance. You rock. Without you, this podcast would be meaningless. So please reach out, team@managementconsultant.com. If you've got an idea for an episode, or if you'd like to pitch yourself for an episode, we love hearing from you. So please reach out. Talk to you soon.